Advisory Commission. The time is now 7:39. We call the meeting to order. May I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty or justice for all. Okay, roll call. Most of us are here today. Wes is not. The agenda is before you. Do you see anything that needs adjusting? Any additions or deletions? Hearing none, we will move on. Public comment.
We have to vote to accept the agenda.
All right. So all in favor of the agenda as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. That is 5 of us, 5-0. Okay. There is no public comment at this time, so if people do come in later on, be happy to entertain public comments. Move directly down to discussion items. We have 4 discussion items for tonight. First is about the master plan update. So most of you should know that Groseal has been undertaking a full master plan update over the past year. There is some implementation items, and I just wanted to share what there was, and I would provide some comments from the Planning Commission perspective, but also from a BPAC perspective. After that, we'd have an update about the Gibraltar Bay Connector, if anyone has anything specifically. Otherwise, it'll be a discussion for future month. Same thing with Wayfinding and Signage plan, and then the Bellevue Connector. So with that, I'm going to move over to the lectern, so that way I can share the master plan. So hopefully everyone that's watching this can see my laptop over here. So this was the agenda packet from the Planning Commission meeting, which was yesterday. I was not able to attend that, but I did provide comments ahead of time. And then it included this implementation report specifically as part of the master plan. So as you go through it, and again, all this should be available online for folks that want to review that. If not, I'll make sure to get a copy of that online. But it gets into an action plan, and it talks about different planning partners. And so, at a large level, there's things about housing and transportation. So the first one is expand housing and make Groseal Township desirable place to for residents for a wide range of age groups. And so I'm just going through this so you can kind of see how this flows, that there's a specific action item over here. Consider conducting a comprehensive zoning audit, yada yada. It's a time is near term. Tools is like the zoning ordinance, and then it shows about the champions. And so in that case, it would be community development department and planning commission and consultants. So what I'm going to do is just move on ahead to the things that specifically affect BPAC. So we go down to H6. Hopefully I don't make anybody dizzy as I'm zooming through this. So 8.6 is encourage the stewardship of natural resources as a key part of quality neighborhoods. And so I said that include planning commission, DPS, open space, recreation department, schools, and others. While BPAC can help fill gaps, future development and road projects need to have other avenues to increase walkability. Because right over here in item 3, it said enhance connections to active recreation and walkability by increasing the number of sidewalks in residential neighborhoods and along arterial roadways. And we were the only partner or champion on that. And so I felt it was in the best interest to make sure that this is, again, a township-wide thing. There's a variety of players involved, and we have a limited budget, so it's we can do some sidewalk gap filling, but we can't do it all without raising the tax base or finding other creative sources. So as developments come through from a planning perspective, or single housing with building department and such. Like there's other, ways to actually fill those gaps. So I would just put in there that there needs to be some of those other champions. Next one I believe was 6. Sorry, looking over here. C1, ensure safe and reliable bridge access to and from Groseal Township. And so, the first one is, collaborate with Wayne County to provide non-motorized pathways as part of any bridge reconstruction. So obviously, that pertains to, in the far future, as far as the Free Bridge, but other smaller bridges in the area. But I also wanted to mention that because it mentioned about the toll bridge, and so I was saying that we need to ensure access, proper access to the toll bridge, which does allow people to bike across it. So within Groseal Township, it's pretty easy to navigate to the toll bridge. But once you cross through that service plaza, it becomes kind of a mess over there. And so since we probably own that property up into the Jefferson Avenue, should probably working with Wayne County and others to try and figure out how to best, promote, right use. Like if there's a specific area for bicyclists, if there's a specific area for motor vehicles, and try to make some connections to Jefferson Avenue, which will have bike lanes in the future.
So I'd be surprised if our design would be able to incorporate a dedicated pedestrian walkway in the new bridge update, because that would be a big structural change. But, I was thinking about it, and I've biked across the bridge, and it is a bit of a harrowing experience just because there isn't any lane markers for bikes or anything. So if we at least made some green bike lanes, I think, and granted it's not a dedicated bike lane because it's not wide enough, but it would provide at least an indicator to drivers that expect to see bicycles here, right? And if they are in front of you, you have to give them the space,
Exactly.
And then maybe a pass through at the toll plaza would be something else that would be feasible for the township to do. So,
as there's many different ways to promote bicycle safety, and so it's not always going to be a shared use path or a bike lane. It could be signage. It could just be, again, at the service plaza area, as you go to the east past the service plaza, that's where it kind of widens out, and you might have more space, and you might want to work on the pavement over there, and make sure there's not potholes, so that way people can ride predictably.
is there a trail there?
There is not a trail there at this time.
Okay.
But there is the sidewalk on the east side of Jefferson. The Downriver Link Greenways are looking at doing bike lanes from Trenton all the way up into Wyandotte, and to connect in with the ones in Ecorse and River Rouge.
Okay.
And then, as Jefferson Avenue over there, there's a lot of lanes of traffic. Basically, with the exception of maybe a couple times a day, you can have a whole lane to yourself riding on a bike because there's just not that much traffic. So Jefferson itself is pretty bikeable as it is right now. It's just that intersection and the that gateway area before the service plaza, which is kind of more of a mess. So I wanted to make sure that that was included within an implementation update, especially since we did purchase the toll bridge. I can't recall if it was part of this.
There's also a multi-use path, right, in Wyandotte right there at Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it ends at Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I know-
Is
It's
that
just a
10
gap
feet?
filling.
Yeah, that's a 10-foot path, I think, right? It's a good size path, I think.
It's definitely a decent sized path. I
Yeah.
can't recall if it's 8 or 10 feet wide. And I do know that Riverview tried to get a shared use path put in when they redid Jefferson Avenue last year, 2 years ago. But at the time, Wayne County had said no. But again, you might be able to do something depending on how much traffic is projected to
Yeah,
be
there's
put in
3
there.
lanes there.
Yeah.
It's
Most of Jefferson is
underutilized
2
completely.
lanes. It's
You can see where what is now or now will be township property, currently Groseal Bridge Company property, ends with the road because the road goes to almost complete disrepair.
yeah.
So
right at the
unfortunately,
curve.
we would have to at least come up with some kind of agreement to create a path at least down to the corner or something, But I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just saying like, right over in this area is where it kind of gets a little hairy. So over here, again, it's not the best, but like, there's so many people that do bike it and your traffic is going pretty slow and it's only one lane in each direction. So, I think given like the current conditions as well as like just not having any space, I mean, we're not proposing anything on the bridge. It's just, hey, is there a way to actually make it safer once you get off of it to be able to connect up with Jefferson over here? And is there anywhere like over on this side that we could potentially do anything from a safety standpoint to get people? But I'm less concerned on this side, more concerned over on this side.
Well, I think about like when the other bridge is closed, then traffic control and like bike safety and pedestrian safety becomes like a real big deal. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay.
So, we talk about, and C2 is enhance and grow the network of non-motorized pathways for bicyclists and pedestrians to expand travel choices, improve safety, and encourage recreational activity. And action 1 is implement neighborhood traffic calming techniques primarily near existing schools, major roads, to minimize traffic impact on neighborhoods while ensuring the safe emergency vehicle access is maintained to all areas. BPAC is noticeably missing on this one, and it's something that we've talked about as neighborhood greenways, because again, you can't fit a full bike path in like many parts of Groseal. You're just not enough right of way. So if you're able to calm the road, it might be more friendly for walking and biking without specific facilities. And so, I wanted to make sure that, we were considered as part of that because, we've talked about that for parts of West River, potentially part for thoroughfare between Meridian and Church Road. And so just, including us would be good. Action 3 is partner with our commission to pursue grant funding for the design and construction of new recommended pathways, et cetera. Basically, I thought we should be including funding partners on that, and then one of the largest ones is specifically SEMCOG. Moving down to 01, so we're almost there. It's a very long report. Okay, 01, meet the recreation needs of all segments of Groseal's population, including preschool and elementary school children, teens, adults, seniors, persons with disabilities, families, single adults, and seniors. I was saying that for the first one, where it says design recreation facilities that not only provide recreational opportunities, but also contribute to the aesthetic quality and ecological balance of the township, I thought that, we should be a partner in that because, again, our pathways, serve multiple purposes. And so, like, that applies to, 2, 3, and 4, that we were not there. So the 2 is, foster new relationships and encourage continued cooperation with community groups, volunteers, and specific organizations. So again, like, we work with the Rotary Club, we work with the schools, we work with, recreation department, we partner with a lot of others. We work with the police department in order to like do education. So I thought it made sense to include BPAC on that. 3 is evaluate open space deed restrictions regarding paving and construction that would hinder improvements around accessibility. While that isn't our specific domain, being a partner, like if you're paving something through a wooded area, like it's going to dump out onto a road. And so at that point, it becomes our domain as far as how to take care of people to like get from that location to, a safe place, whether that be their house or a school or, another park. And so I thought it made sense for us to be included in that consultation. And I'm sure that's going to happen anyways. As you probably have heard that various commissions will be meeting in order to do more coordination It's being led by Bill Stevenson from the Open Space Committee. I have not been able to attend many of the meetings. I think a lot of them have been canceled, but we have some coming up in the new year. So I think it'll happen naturally, but it's just good to include us. Number 4, allow landholders with large tracts of open space to create access points and trails that allow residents access to natural areas. So again, similar situation. Plus, we've talked about making a connection like through Park Lane. Basically connect Park Lane on both sides to the open space. And so that's why I thought it'd be good for us to be considered a partner on that. Moving on to 02, use recreation as a catalyst to bring people together, promote a sense of community, pride, health, wellness, and high quality life for residents. Action 4 is pursue alternative funding sources. So again, like we can potentially help out with that. Then moving down to Q6. So this is to continue to build community trust in the government through strong communication channels and transparency and engagement. So action item 1 talks about a capital improvements plan. This is something that we've been talking about for a while, is again to get streamlined about like what type of maintenance and improvements that we're going to be doing over a multi-year period. So that way it's easier to plan for that. So I thought that we should be a part of that one. And then 2 is prepare a public engagement plan and annually report on the year's public engagement efforts. So there's a lot of different commissions over here. I think that we've always prided ourselves on trying to be accessible to the members at large and to the residents. And so I would think it would be in good spirits for us to be a part of that as well. So that concludes what I had as far as recommended comments, or changes to the implementation report. If you don't have access to this, I can send a copy to you. If you have other comments, we can send those over to the team as well.
Just out of curiosity, what is the schedule on the master plan?
I forget exactly, but I believe it's like the first part of next year. Yeah, of 25
For the adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still a draft right now.
Yeah, we're still like in the public comment stage. So, like I said, Planning Commission, talked about it last month, and then they, talked about the implementation just yesterday. I believe it still needs to go before the Township Board.
Sure.
So there's a lot of stuff still going on with it.
I believe we have a vote on it, but we're not, or did we already? But we're not voting on accepting the plan. We're voting on some other minutia. Let me see.
Yeah, I can't
I don't know.
recall
I guess
if
it's
that
not-
happened already or not.
What's that?
I couldn't recall if that happened yet or not, because
Let me look at the.
back in November
I think we did, but we voted to accept or to accept the current draft in order to allow public comment on it. I believe was the action.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to move into the other part about the master plan. And so I know I did solicit comments from the entire commission over here. So this was the map that was given to us by Smith Group, what they put together. You can see that there's some things in here that specifically are from our planning efforts, other things that I believe are more citizen comment. I still need to be able to sit down with representatives from Smith Group to work on the details, because again it was just sent to me. But what I did was compile a list of some changes over here, and I know that folks did provide some comments. So, but I wanted to give a chance to kind of show what we are talking about over here. So I'll start with these light blue areas, these circles, if you see them. Those are missing existing sidewalks or paths. So they did not include any of the sidewalks within the Potawatomi Woods South, south of Church Road. the sidewalk on Park Lane, north of Church Road. There was also the sidewalk on Manchester. And then they didn't include the path that we just did over Gibraltar Bay Connector. And then they were also missing a path, down by Pirates Cove. So like that was put in as part of that development over there. So that was one of the major comments, was about, missing existing sidewalks and paths. Another thing in pink is about retaining access. So I know we already spoke about the toll bridge over here. Similarly, for the free bridge, making sure that, we retain access for that. I know we're building upon it with the connection down to West River. But I also wanted to make sure that the Park Lane Bridge over the Thoroughfare Canal, which is currently not open to motorized traffic, is open to bicycle and pedestrian traffic. And so I don't know what the fate of that bridge is, but if for some reason they say it's a safety concern and they need to remove it, hopefully we can, put something else in place that would at least like allow for bicycle and pedestrian access, or, maybe some emergency access as well, like, over the Thoroughfare Canal. And so that way it keeps that connectivity, and like there's a safe place for people to walk and bike, along that section of Park Lane and connect to the churches and, everything to the south. There was some areas that I thought that probably, were left over from like, past planning efforts. So in the past, we talked about our connection from the Free Bridge to be able to go back through, is it the Douglas Cut? I'm forgetting the name at the moment.
Yeah,
but
through the Hickory.
Yeah, like the Hickory and Chicory, like through that area. So I put X's over there. It's like that's no longer a BPAC recommendation.
And there's a wetland that kind of separates Hickory and Chicory.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't think you could probably, you could overcome it with a footpath, I guess, elevated footpath, but juice probably isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, it's like you could come over, get over it, but like it was a really high cost. And then like when we worked with the local property owners, like they weren't really interested in something in the back or really something in the front either too much. So at least for the time being, just like, yeah, that's not one of our recommendations. So unless they heard from it from like the public at large or someone else from the township, might be good to remove that. Additionally, I didn't know about this connection down on South Point all the way down to Ford Yacht Club. Like the road is pretty calm down there already. So again, like, do you want to put in a path all the way down there? I feel like we might need to focus our efforts. And so, I haven't heard anything on our commission talk about that at all. So I put that on there as a, no longer BPAC recommendation.
So where you've got the missing Gibraltar Bay connector, there's also a pale blue line saying 4-foot sidewalk paths.
Yeah, I'm not sure like where that comes from. So I want to ask.
Yeah, there's no sidewalks down there.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I want to find out is like, the 4-foot sidewalk paths, because I'm not aware of any of those. Again, my assumption is that somebody, as far as the master plan update, said like, hey, wouldn't it be great to have something here? So
yeah.
I would like to find out, hey, is, how valid is that? Is that like, half the population is asking for it, or is it just one person, or is it like just something left over? I do know that, we did make sure that there, as part of the new bridge over Meso Island, that it did have, space for people walking, the sidewalks. So that way, if we can get something in the future, but like, I feel like in the short term, again, like we might want to focus our efforts on where there's, higher population centers and such. But like if the opportunity arose, I wouldn't be like against it. It's just that there's not that much people living down that area. So I guess next I'll do like the green. And so like that was like the existing like open space trails. So I don't know if they accounted for them elsewhere, but we have the ferry trail that connects from Gage on the north end. And, it's meanders a little bit more, but just for representation purposes, I put like the rough area where it connects into Ferry Road. And then I included like the Manchester Wood Trail that, starts over by Meridian Elementary and, connects over to the Centennial Park, as well as, connects over to East River. Because like, again, those serve more of like transportation purposes, and that's why I included those there. I also included the path. Maybe this was already here. Sorry about that. So like another thing was about access to the schools. So again, it looks like somebody talked about a 4-foot sidewalk on Church, which is great. We need something on Church for sure, connecting with the bike path to be able to get people to Park Lane Elementary. But I also thought it'd be great, again, if they talk about, working with local property owners, if there's a way to get some sort of easement where there might be additional ways to like get to the schools as opposed to like the main entrance where you're going to have a lot of traffic, especially like with, combining two schools together. Down the roads, like if you can get access from Canterbury or somewhere else where you can get, basically go through the field in the back to be able to access the park, the school.
I think there is 4-foot sidewalks on Church once you get to HCL Jackson and east of there. And they go as far as Park Lane, I think. Maybe it's a block or two blocks or something.
It's Park Lane to Thoroughfare.
Yeah. But being able to complete that and then creating some kind of access to the backside of the school would be a significant boon.
So similarly, I said the same thing with the high school and middle school complex. Again, like East River is going to be really hard for us, to get something on there complete. So it's like if you can get access through like the neighborhood streets to give people access, to the middle school, that's going to be a lot better. And I guess from there I'll move to this dashed line over here, which is something that we propose. We've talked about Ferry Road. And that's, specifically because of the ferry trail, like coming out right over here, but also, being so close to Park Lane and so close to the middle school, and then, being able to connect to our bike path system. And so like, this is something that, I'd like to be able to work on and try to get that east-west connector there. Other dashed lines, as we mentioned with Park Lane, you can see like some of these connections over here already. This is more. This is not existing at the moment, so that definitely probably should be more of a dashed. But again, like you could do Park Lane north of Horse Mill as like one of those neighborhood greenways if you're able to keep the access to the bridge over the Thoroughfare Canal, and that could connect in with Meridian on the other end. Similarly, West River, we don't have much room over there, especially the section between Grosio Parkway and Horse Mill. It's pretty comfortable bicycling already, but like if there's ways you could do just some traffic calming in order to make it, cut down on the people speeding over there, that could definitely help out. And then of course with Bellevue, with our linear park, like that's, I also made sure that was accounted for in there.
Yeah, and I want to get into talks about that, but I want to have at least a construction date and everything before we get too serious about how we're going to go into, phase 2. So
Some of the park.
Yeah. Before we start bothering the country club about a linear park and Wayne County about the park, let's at least get the ground broke for the the trail.
That
I
makes
understand
sense.
they've been having some delays with that with MDOT and. Which actually is, I guess, kind of the update about it. There's no update.
Yeah, and that's not that's pretty common with MDOT. Not trying to slam MDOT at all, but it's just like they're professionals, they're engineers, and like they're going to do everything by the book and make sure that it meets all of the guidelines put out there by Federal Highway Administration. And so, sometimes there's things that we can do at a local level that FHWA wouldn't do. And so like there's that kind of disconnect between like the local side and like what is like federal standards. And so when you're using federal money, you have to abide by them. And so, I think that's kind of like where the Downriver Link Greenways are right now with that. I don't know like all the details, but I'll just say like it's very common for that to happen. with any community in Southeast Michigan or across the state. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, but we definitely want to make sure that we have more of a firm schedule before, talking to other parties. Okay. So one other thing was mentioned, and Jameson, I think you're aware of this because, when we had that meeting with the Planning Commission and the Township Board, we talked about, we had some exercises, and I'd mentioned about potentially creating this loop through Gibraltar Bay. And again, this isn't something like, oh, we're going to do this tomorrow, but it'd be pretty amazing if you're able to extend the connection from the Gibraltar Bay unit, because Gibraltar Bay owns some property, and then the Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy owns some property, and then you can get down to the naval, the old silos and the seaplane base. You can get all the way down to the bottom over there. And then I know that Carl Blocher had talked about over on the east side, west side of the airport, that there's additional space over there where you could run something. So it's okay, if we could potentially bring those down right there, wouldn't it be amazing? Even if you have to be able to have enough distance away from planes, could you do a floating boardwalk or something like that? It would be
oh, that'd be rad.
It's seasonal. You have it open during the springs and summer and the fall, and it's an attraction, and you have this whole loop system where people can train and do different things and be a little more connected both to nature and the airport. So I put that on there. Again, not saying that it's something that we are going full steam ahead on, but hey, this is a master plan going out 20 or 30 years. So
yeah, I think you got to put this kind of stuff out there, otherwise it never gets. The wheels of government grind slowly. But I would have some conversations with the airport commission about this, because I bet you they'd be interested in something like that.
Yeah.
They're always looking at trying to bring in business, and maybe they could start doing retail or some hospitality type stuff down here. So maybe they'd be interested in partnering with us on something like that.
Yep. So if there's agreement over here, I'll start talking with the airport manager and John Reithel and some others from the Commerce Park to say hey, what do you think about this? So the last category was about intersection and crossing improvements. And so I know that that's been a big thing that we've talked about on this commission. We're able to successfully get better crossing at Ferry Road. We've been talking about a better crossing needed over at Meridian Elementary. And so basically I looked at, okay, where is their existing pathway? Where is there a major road that maybe the pathway is crossing, or proposed improvements that would be happening, and those are areas where you'd probably want to look at intersection improvements of some kind to get people across. And this is one thing that we did hear at the public comments back when we were looking at that Douglas cut, is people were saying hey, it would be nice to be able to cross Meridian over here to be able to get to Water's Edge Complex. So that would be one where it's it'd be great to have some bicycle and pedestrian access if there's a little phase or something, a little stub. But most of these are probably pretty cheap to do. It's you don't have to reinvent the wheel on it. But I just again want to call that out there where we need to start focusing in on those intersections.
Yeah, it looks good. I think you're the intersection expert, so.
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do appreciate the compliment.
No, you're an expert.
I guess, is there any other comments that people have about this as it was proposed? Anything people feel strongly about one way or the other?
That's such a strong tie into safety factors at these intersections too. It should be prioritized. In the mindset that it should be sooner than later. It shouldn't be something we'll get to when we can. I think we need to push this forward and make it a priority just under the umbrella of safety. Because that's our, in my opinion, that's our most important factor on this bike path.
people were a little bent out of shape about the Ferry Road light at first. But it only changes for 17 seconds. So it's like, you'll be all right. Take a deep breath, right? But they got over it. So I think that other types of devices are, they got the flashing timed ones and things like that I think would be less disruptive to traffic, but still safer for people, and honestly not very expensive. I know we looked into them last year, and it was like, I was surprised how affordable they were actually.
Yeah, in some place it could be, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or maybe just high visibility crosswalk markings. There's a variety of different things that you can do. I know you're talking with Ross about, Park Lane and Macomb Street, and more doing pedestrian like curb extensions out there to basically just narrow the intersection a little bit, so that way it's easier for people to cross it, calm the traffic. So there's a variety of things you can do, and from low tech to high tech. So cool. If you do have anything else afterwards, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to try and schedule a meeting with the Smith Group and Ross just to make sure they understand our comments over here, and see if there's a way to take all these comments and symbolize it, so that way it's a little bit more intuitive. With that, concludes my discussion item about the master plan update.
Skipped all the safe routes to schools. Yeah,
It's I'm not sure where they get all the data, but
Sure.
Probably some intern sitting on Google Maps,
Yeah,
cranking
right.
away, right?
Google Earth.
So.
all right. So the next item I have on here is about the Gibraltar Bay connector. If you recall, our last meeting we talked about the need to put some signage, maybe some other elements in place, that way cars were not going on the Gibraltar Bay connector down within the Gibraltar Bay Wildlife Refuge. I haven't heard from Ross recently. I'm going to reach out to him this week, but if anyone else has heard from him or anybody else on an update, feel free to state what you got.
I talked with him about it. I think the last time we discussed it, brought it up in a board meeting, and I think it fell off everybody's radar with the new incoming board and everything else. So.
Okay. I can just reconnect.
Probably
with
just
him.
re-engage him about it. I'm sure he's
Okay.
tracking.
I know Ross was putting together a multi commission wayfinding and signage plan. He was trying to put together some language for an RFQ.
Okay.
And so I don't know where that landed, so I can ask him about that as well. So the last item here is about the Bellevue connector. I know we talked a little bit about that as far as the status. John, I know that you mentioned about potentially doing some renderings of some sort.
And I apologize. I've been kind of wrapped up. My team's been wrapped up, but my landscape architect and architect asked me a few questions that I couldn't answer. Are we looking to, and I couldn't remember this, are we looking to keep some vehicle mode, like emergency vehicle mode, to be able to go from east to west there?
So I know we've
Like a
talked
brick
about that
paver
a
type
bunch, but I really don't think it's necessary. I think it's costly, and I mean,
It has a big impact on the design, obviously.
right, because it's if you look, there's 1,000 other ways to get around there, and there's really nothing in between they would desperately need to access that they don't have the tools to access, That would be like saying hey, we have to make sure the fire department can drive through Manchester Woods, right? It's kind of like the same thing, and you just wouldn't. I just don't think you would. I think the fire commission and police department maybe will give us a little guff if they don't have an access to it, and I think they have some points, but I just don't think it's what are we talking about? 200 yards?
Oh no, it's probably about 3,000 feet. It's probably 3/5 of a mile, I'd say. Or no, it's a half mile between probably Meridian and West River.
But they would still have access to most of it.
Oh yeah.
So
you would
it's
have
just that
cul-de-sacs at
small
the end.
section in the middle that's.
And you would, the only, there's enough ways around there. It's not going to
Yeah, I don't think it's really, it would be my recommendation at least that we go forward without allowing any kind of vehicular access, right? Because I think that's the cheaper, easier, simpler method. But I'm not an engineer, right? So you guys tell me.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It just made a huge impact on how they would formulate a design for it.
Yeah.
You
I know as a planner, I look at it as like, okay, you can propose a solution and it might be the right solution. But like if you come in and you talk to people about it and say, hey, this is what I want to do, sometimes people are just like standoffish to begin with.
Sure.
So it's like if you bring them in to begin with and like say like, hey, this is the issue that we're trying to solve. Let's come up with some ideas and that you work on it together, then you get the buy-in. So like I know there's kind of like those two sides, like one that takes a lot longer and like it's a little more amorphous because people might not know like what you're specifically proposing, but then on the other side, if you come in with like the specific plan, it might be too prescriptive. And so just, again, I don't know like how much time it would take, but like if there's an idea to show a couple different alternatives where you say like, hey, this is the one that we're leaning towards, but like, these are other things that we can do in order to preserve emergency access, or if there's other things out there as far as that we need to accommodate
or something.
What's that?
Don't they have a gator or like a little side by side or something?
Oh, like a gator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that they have that. But yeah, it would be good just to hear like, do they need to get a fire truck through there? Like, is that the concern? What type of vehicle are they trying to get through there? How could you design it so that way maybe it's mountable where like they could get over it if they need to? Can you place things a certain way where it's like it's still like a park, but like the vehicle can get through there if needed, and just again you have different alternatives and see which one sticks the best. Maybe lean in. It's kind of like what we did with the other parts of Bellevue. It's like we came in with what we would like to do, but we did work with the Golf and Country Club in order to come up with a compromise that hopefully will work for
And I
everybody.
think they would support. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, there's ways for sure because we're redeveloping a park in the city of Wayne that's a real old park, and we're putting substantial planters in the way because we've got to be able to get access for band equipment to get to the new stage that we're building through there. But you have to prevent for security somebody driving off the street and mowing down 100 people. You can't, and so you have to. It's too bad you have to think of that these.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could make like an attractive lockable gate.
Well, even just the planters. So to your point, that you can get around them, but it's not.
That's what I was
easy.
My
recommending
concern-
down by Gibraltar Bay, like last time I was mentioning that. But the other thing to look at is in Trenton. If you're coming across West Road, moving westbound, before you get to the light at Jefferson, there's a street that I believe that you can turn down to the right. But like 1 or 2 blocks in, they have road barricades up over there. And like, that's like the simplest like
Third
solution.
Street there, that they
it's
block
like,
off.
I mean, I'm not promoting that specifically, but I'm just saying that, hey, they've got these, road blockades that they put out there most of the year, and then they take them down for the festival or any other time that they need to have that circulation. So you could do the same thing with planters or other movable objects.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is I wouldn't want to. I just don't want the emergency services to say they need access for the sake of access, right? Which is pretty much that's going to be their starting position. Well, we need access, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we just need to maybe talk with them about like what's realistic and feasible.
Well,
Sure.
we could develop a couple alternatives to your point. That's a good idea, and then sit down with them and see
Okay.
what is, because if it's like any regulatory agency. If you ask them if they have jurisdiction, they're all sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
It'd probably be good to talk to recreation too, because it's like we can create this park, but like, are they going to want to like do programs in it? Like, what could they do with that space?
Well, I'm
And, like,
going
how
to be
would
the
they
new
like to
rec
see it?
liaison. So
What's that?
I'm going to be the new rec liaison.
Nice.
So I will chat with Rec about that.
I mean, it's going to be hard to promote like a event space in such a narrow, window of.
You know what I was thinking would be perfect? Would be a skate park. And I know there's a lot of people that like pump the brakes on that here in Grosse Ile because they think it's just full of crime-ridden, weed-smoking teenagers. And maybe.
That's what they said about the bike path back in 1990.
Right, but I think that it's a huge attraction for kids. It would be a healthy outdoor activity for them to do. They're a little bit expensive to get started, but cheap to maintain. And in that small space where we've already got pavement, it wouldn't be hard to just throw up some ramps and rails and things like that.
Yeah, we're doing a new one in Taylor. I mean, they're cool.
Yeah.
They're kind of design build because these people that are skateboarders know how what attributes and features should be in a park to make it
Right.
different levels of challenge for the skateboarder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Sounds
going
like-
to be an interesting conversation when we say we can do it. What do you want to put in there? There's going to be some great ideas coming.
Yeah, so I say like that should probably be one of the topics when we get together with open space and rec and the other commissions and just say, hey, this is one of our projects over here. We want buy-in. We want this to be a community project. What do you think about the space? Could you use it? And if so, what could you use it for?
I mean, honestly, and this is pie in the sky stuff, but I would like to see a full RFP retrofit and rebuild of Water's Edge, the marina, and that golf course into a waterfront entertainment district, and that could certainly tie into it, like a linear park. But that's probably something that's years and years in the making. So
Hopefully you're on the board in order to make it happen.
we'll see. I got 4 more years. So.
All right. Any other anything else related to the Bellevue connector? Hearing none, we can move into liaison report.
So new board. I'm excited for it. I think we're going to work well together. They've all got their commission assignments, and I think there was good people selected for good commissions. So I think we're going to have it's going to be a good board term. I'm excited about Supervisor Joe. I think everybody here knows Joe Porcerelli. He's going to do a great job. He probably loves Grosse Ile more than anybody else on the island. So one thing that I think would be a good, we've talked about it. We've talked about taking BPAC down to 5. I think if we're going to do that in this new board term, that would be a good time to do it. And I know the new board is already considering, or at least I shouldn't say the new board because we haven't met to discuss it, but some members of the board are considering how we confirm and approve members of commissions and whether, as an example, if I'm the township supervisor for 14 years or 16 years, should I really be on a commission, right? Or do I have too much undue political influence at that point and things like that? And then the other thing they're considering about commission members is attendance, right? We're supposed to attend 70% of meetings, I think it is, or 75% of meetings. And I think everybody here does. But I think that'll affect the number of people on the current roster of people on all the commissions, right? Not just BPAC. So if we did want to consider going down to a 5-member commission, I think now would be the time to consider doing that, which would be a board action, which I would make at the recommendation of BPAC. So, of course, I could make the recommendation without BPAC, but it's always better to, if you're going to change a commission, get the commission's buy-in.
Definitely.
One question is that's not totally related, but when is our millage up for the BPAC?
This year.
This year, we really have to stress to the board, we need more money. The millage is just not, in how the millage was selected was just kind of, it seems from a point of view of fear, in a sense, like
Well, you're
no
talking
one's
about the
going to
bridge
approve
millage?
this, so we have to go this level. I think this number of mills.
You're talking about the bridge millage?
No.
Oh, the
Maintenance
BPAC
millage.
maintenance millage?
The maintenance millage,
Well-
years ago, like
It's
There-
pretty. I think most islanders support renewals, even in tough times. They'll
well,
support.
I think
millage
renewals are generally pretty straightforward. But I'd like a renewal with an increase because I think we really are handicapped with our budget to make a really
Well,
as
so
impactful of a position as we'd like to make.
our current millage only allows for maintenance,
Yeah.
right? So I think if you wanted to, I think you would want to do two separate millages, just from I shouldn't say like a political perspective, but a political science perspective, because they shot down the police millage increase, right? This previous year, which is fine, will of the people, right? But they're definitely not going to improve a whole bunch more bike trails if they're not improving more police money, at least in my opinion. Most Grosse Ile voters, I think the master plan says the average age in Grosse Ile is 55 and relatively conservative. So if they're not willing to spend more money on public service, they're probably not willing to spend more money on trails. What I would say is then we do two millages, right? We go out for renewal for maintenance, wait a cycle, and then we say, hey, we would like to, we want to make these trails, right? And I think we bring an education component to it as well, where we're like, hey, this is what we want to do with this money. For every $10 you spend, you're going to get 40 linear feet a new trail or something, right? So I think that would be the best, in my opinion, the most likely successful route, I guess, than just being like, hey, we're not doing a renewal, we're just going to do a straight millage increase, because I think people will balk at that. They didn't even want to do the bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, it did pass 75%, so I think maybe the naysayers were just louder than the yay-sayers, but that'd be my recommendation anyway.
Yeah.
Just to add on to what John was saying, I could be wrong, but I think what you're saying is that even like just for maintenance, it's not enough.
I just don't think it's enough to take care of what we
You're probably right.
what
Especially,
we have. And I was always told that what is the current mills? It's
it's like point. I just looked at it earlier today because I got my bill. It's like
0.25 or something.
I think it was less than a single mill. It was small, like 0.3 or something.
0.3.
Yeah.
In that I had heard through the grapevine, and I'm not sure that it started out at 1 mill or something, and everyone just like, oh, they'll never, without even get shot down,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in a lot of millage increases with road funding and things like that, and the ones that get shot down for sure are like 10 years because no one trusts the government with their money for 10 years, but they'll trust you for 5 years, And so, to your point, though, there's a political science to how these are presented, but I would like I think even what we have now is not enough for us.
Well,
So
'cause
just to
how
put it
old
in
are some of our trails are pretty old, aren't they?
Yeah,
20,
a
30
lot of
years
our
old?
20 or 30 years old.
So they're reaching the end of their.
Yeah.
Even if you look at
More
like
than 30,
we
32.
we've been forced to kind of build things not the best way we'd want to build them. Like if you look at the trail on Horse Mill from Meridian to Thoroughfare, it's breaking up quite a bit, but there's no aggregate base there because there wasn't the money to put the aggregate base.
It's also on a swamp.
It's not, well, that's all the more reason that you needed the aggregate base so you could allow that water to pass through it,
That was an
And-
engineering decision.
Specific design decision, or was that something the construction company just kind of did?
No, I think it was a budgetary condition, but whereas the path that we did with Safe Routes on Meridian, that's built with aggregate stone through there, and that's in really good shape, and so, it's, I think the engineer was hamstrung by the budgetary constraints,
When are
And
you
then
guys
there's
gonna
drainage.
figure out Roman concrete?
Yeah, right. we're gonna try to get that good, you know?
Okay. All right.
Rome
So-
wasn't in Wayne County.
Just to take the mills, which is kind of like, again, like to me, like a little amorphous, like we generate about $95,000 per year to cover like all of our maintenance.
It's not a lot.
Yeah. And so if you were to take like all of that and plus a little bit more, get it up to $100,000 and say, we're going to take this as a match and put it into a grant. If we're lucky enough to get the grant, that could pay for like a $500,000 grant. And, most of the paths, like you have to actually rebuild them as opposed to just doing a skim coat on top. I know that when we were doing some of the work a couple years ago now, the thought was, okay, we're going to go in, we're kind of like mill down, see how the base is, and then be able to, apply more on top. Hopefully not have to go all the way down to dirt. But like even the machine, like that weight, like putting that on the path was like cracking up the base. And so we ended up having to like redo like the whole sections anyways. And so I think like, yeah, I mean, typically, you're looking at like, $500 to like, $700,000 for like a mile of, asphalt path these days, depending on, the circumstances. So it's just like, just trying to show you that $100,000 doesn't go that far. And then like, we're going to be done. Like we don't have any more. So that's why I was like, this year, it's like, rather than just spend some of that on some of the preventative maintenance that we didn't know if it was needed or not. Cause like you might be putting lipstick on, a pig in that regards. Like you got to rebuild it. Why are we going to put a seal coat over top of something that's failing already? Just save that money and come up with a full plan for, how do we spend the limited amount of money that we've accrued over the last couple of years.
So why don't we? I think as far as spending money smartly and millage renewals and how to do it, I think probably Derek's the number one expert. So maybe our January meeting, we ask if Derek will attend and just do a study session on like, hey, what are
How to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
give us some advice here and what you think and how we might do this and package it up and because he works across departments too, right? So he'll be like, well, DPS is planning on replacing these pipes and that's under the trail anyway, so at least we can get that fixed and whatnot.
Exactly.
So
And that's why when I mentioned before about the capital improvements plan, like that's why I wanted to be involved with that. So it's like we know like, hey, sewer lines coming through, the roads being reconstructed, or whatever like might be happening, like you just team up on those projects.
right. Okay.
Have our responsibilities increased with the Gibraltar Bay connector and the Bellevue connector as well? Like we have to keep the vegetation up at Gibraltar Bay, and then whatever we'll be responsible for. So we'll need to increase just because of that, maybe.
True.
Yeah.
Just based on inflation alone, we've taken a huge hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, like the vegetative maintenance and stuff isn't that much. I mean, but it's like, hey, we have to take care of that. We need to do like the sweeping. We need to do snow removal on, at least, some of the paths. And then we want to do our preventative maintenance. And then, oh yeah, this part is failing. We want to repair that. And like, we want to do this safety upgrade, or we want to be able to fill this gap in. It's just, unfortunately, it just doesn't go that far.
I did notice, I should bring this up to Derek. This was a while ago. I noticed that when they empty the trash cans along the trail, they drive the truck on the trail,
That's a no-no.
which is probably contributing to the state of the trail, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean,
But I just saw it parked there, so I don't know if they're actually driving the length of the trail or if they're just pulling up.
Generally, if you have a 10-foot trail, you can probably drive a truck on it. Where you really get into problems is an 8-foot trail because you don't have
yeah.
the lateral side support.
Which most of ours is 8
It's
foot.
unfortunately, that's.
I think that's all we have.
By the way, that's
Well, the Meridian is 10. I know that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that was built to as MDOT standards, because that was funded through MDOT through there.
That was one thing I forgot to mention when I showed that map. I put down there that like our existing paths, like to explore, widening them to 10 feet. Not only for the reason that you said there,
Yeah.
but it's just like we have a lot of users, and then if we're having like e-bikes and other things like e-scooters
Yeah.
out there, we're probably going to need to have that wider space to be able to accommodate more users.
But if you have an 8-foot path, you shouldn't have anything more than a gator on it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess that makes sense, right? Because you get close to the edge and you start breaking up the.
It does. It gets
Yeah.
it just falls apart, right? And you can see it because it'll be a longitudinal crack, which runs along the crack as opposed to a transverse crack that goes across the path.
All the utility vehicles, abuse it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when it's 90 degrees outside, it's
It
like
moves.
butter.
Oh yeah.
I think that's why we have the Metro Act funds. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be able to like
Yeah.
help do some of those repairs.
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to having a study session just on this funding for our maintenance, because if that's coming up, we can't wait on this.
Yeah. Let's. I'll send an email to Derek right now. What's the date of our? Let me see.
Generally the third Thursday.
It's the 16th. All right. Let me send him a message.
I think it's important enough to just have a study session, even if it's not our scheduled meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we could just make the meeting a study session, right?
Yes.
So, you know.
If we're just doing a study session, I don't know if it's more convenient for Derek, I mean, we could make it earlier
Yeah, anytime.
so that it's closer to the end of the day for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is there a reason we meet at 7:30 instead of like 6 or 6:30 like most of the other? It's just
Family.
Family. Yeah, that's my personal preference because I'm the
Okay.
personal chauffeur for my
No,
kids.
you got a busy schedule, so if you can't work, but, you know,
Alright.
yeah.
Yeah. Went to Wyandotte, drop off a kid, came back, grabbed a kid from the house, took her to Trenton, came back, worked for a little bit, went back, picked her up, dropped her off, then came here.
Yeah.
So it's like I needed it, and I was late. So
Yeah.
No,
that's why I
it's-
was like, I do
It's hard with
7:30.
young kids, for
You're,
sure.
you're
know.
forgiven. But I'm available anytime, provided it's.
I was
not
just
a-
saying out of Derek's, preference to Derek, if it's easier.
Yeah, why don't we talk to him first and maybe let him throw out a few,
Dates.
dates.
okay.
All the input.
But I think
over-
if we did we did the educational program and explain, as Alan mentioned, why we need more money, we really, I think a lot of people would approve the bike. How much I didn't pay much attention. How much did the police millage fail by?
I think it only had 45%. So it wasn't a whole heck of a lot, but it shocked the police. Now, granted, it was a super millage, right? What they were trying to do was consolidate the 3 separate police millages into one.
Which is complex.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I honestly I don't think the average voter pays too much attention to how many mills or like
Yeah.
they're like, do I use this service? Do I appreciate it? Can I afford it? Right? Yes or no? So but yeah, I think it was just it was too much. But
Yeah.
Not anything else? Can we get a motion to adjourn?
moved.
Jameson, and then John. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting's closed at 8:43 p.m. Everybody walk, bike, drive safe.